Hello and welcome back. In this lesson video tutorial, I will be teaching you how to make an animated web banner using Adobe Flash, and we will begin by using different layers to create a mask animation. Okay, so let's begin. The first thing that we're going to do is File, New. Once you have your Adobe Flash opened up, and even though we're not using ActionScript, just press 3.0, and this time the size, the width will be 720 pixels by 300. This will be the size of our banner. You can go ahead and keep this at pixels, and you can go ahead and keep this at 24 frames per second. We're going to change the background color to black, and we are going to click it so that it auto saves every 10 minutes. Press OK, and here it is. Here is our first part. The next thing that we're going to do is we are going to create layers. So on the first layer, what we're going to do is name it Bubbles. And using our oval tool, we are going to draw a few bubbles. And I'm going to show you a neat trick. If you hold down Shift, you can create nice round circles that will be just perfect. Now, you're going to notice that it creates this brown flat color. In order to change this, Adobe Flash offers some options here. Since we're making some bubbles today, you could choose these blue bubbles right here and just go ahead and click on the 3D color here and spray paint it blue, and this gives it a nice 3D effect. Okay, but what you can also do is you can create your own gradient, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. So just to let you know, if your color swatches are not open here, you can go under Window and make sure that all your windows are open, including the color window and including your properties and your library window. Okay, these should be open. And in case you ever lose your timeline, make sure that your timeline is also checked on. Okay. Okay, at this point, I'm going to show you that you can actually go in here to the color options, and you can change things just about here. Like, let's say you're not satisfied with the color, you can click on a different color, but you can also create like a gradient effect. So if you click on the solid color here, you have the choice of creating a linear gradient. And instead of having a black color that fades to white, you can double click here and choose any color that you like. So we could go from a dark blue to maybe a light blue. And once you have that, you can go ahead, once you have it set up, and pick up your spray can, which is right here, your paint bucket, and you can spray it, and you'll see that there's an added effect here. Okay, so there are many different options. So this is one thing that you can also do. You can also experiment with all the different options you have, as well as the radial gradient here. With the radial gradient, once again, you can explore the direction. So if you take your paint bucket tool and you spray to the right, it creates this nice 3D effect where you have the shading to the right and the lighter highlight to the left. Okay, so you can go ahead and explore that, and that creates a nice 3D effect for your sphere. Okay, once I'm finished making my initial sphere, I can go ahead and take that sphere, and what I can do is I can make it into a symbol. So in order to make it into a symbol, I'm going to right click and I'm going to convert it to a symbol. And I'm going to convert it to, I guess you could use a graphic or a movie clip in this case. And I'm going to call it Bubble. What's fun is you could also give your bubble a little bit of an animation. And we'll get into that. For example, you're in the scene level, you can double click and go into the bubble level and create a fun little animation, which we'll get into in more advanced ways in future lessons. And if you just press F6 every 5 frames, you can create this, this effect where it gets bigger and wider. Now, keep in mind also that there is a stroke on your sphere, so you want to sometimes go ahead and get rid of that stroke because it might be in the way. So keep that in mind as well. Okay. So now you have this animation. But what's really wonderful about this too is that on the 5 keyframe, you can take your spray can and change the direction and spray it differently. So that instead of the shadow being to the right, maybe the shadow's a little bit to the bottom, or maybe it's a little bit to the top. Okay, so then you have something like this. Okay, now if we go back to the scene level, you'll notice that if I go ahead and go to Control and test my movie in a browser, this is the crazy effect I'm going to have. Okay. Now, if you don't want this effect, once again, you can just go back, double click, and go inside the bubble level, and go ahead and go back and delete that keyframe, or simply Shift Select, right click, and remove frames. Now you can always go back into this and press F6 right on 5. And if you decide that you don't want to change the size of the bubble and you just want to change the direction of the highlight or the shadow, you can go ahead and do that as well. And you'll notice the subtle difference here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go back to the scene level. Make sure you click back to the scene level, Control, and you're going to test it in a browser. And this is the fun little effect you have here. It looks like it's almost rotating. Okay. Now if you double click here, once again, so it's basically a movie inside a movie, if you think about it. You can go ahead and click on this, select the entire bubble, and move it slightly to the right or to the left. Just make sure that when you move it slightly to the right or to the left, that the entire thing moves as well. So you're seeing the onion skinning of this. And this is what you have. Okay. Now how is this going to look? Well, let's go back to the scene level. And if we're going to Command D and duplicate this bubble, now some of these bubbles, what you can do is change their scale as well. And you'll see what we're about to do. To give it more of a depth. Command C, Command V, you can copy and paste. Some of them will be bigger than others. Once again, make sure you're in the scene level when we're setting this up. So all I'm doing at this point is I'm duplicating some of these bubbles and I'm changing some of their sizes. And what my goal is basically to fill up the scene with these bubbles. Have the smaller ones a little bit. On top, I'll have the smaller looking bubbles. And on the bottom, I'll have the bigger looking bubbles. Command C on your keyboard, Command V will do the job. And once I'm satisfied and I have enough bubbles, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. So make sure that you make several of these. If you're having a difficult time selecting, just switch over to the Move tool. So that's another thing you can do. And then you can switch back over to the Transform tool. Okay, so this is what we have so far on our banner. And what we're going to do is on one, what we're going to do is grab the entire set of bubbles and we're going to move them down. Okay, that's what we're going to do. And on 60, we are going to press F6 and move the entire group up. Just like that. Now on 30, we're going to create an in-between frame and press F6 and move them a little bit to the side here. And then once we're finished, what we're going to do is we're going to select one and shift select 60, right click, and at this point we're going to create a classic tween. And this is what we have. So once again, all we did was select one, hold down the shift button, select 60, right click, and create a classic tween. And this is the fun little animation that we have. Now, how does it look when we play this? If we go Control and we test the movie, we could do it either in the browser or in Flash. Well, it looks a little bit like this. It's a little glitchy. It looks like it's shaking. Well, I'm trying to show you that the reason for that is that we have another level of animation when it comes to the symbol level. So if you double click any one of these, you'll notice that 1 and 5, it moves. You can simply get rid of that just by holding the shift down and removing the frames like before. But now, so you see the difference, we're going to explore something else. On 5, what we're going to do is we're going to change the color. We're going to change the color of the radial gradient. So instead of blue, we're going to go for a nice, maybe like a purplish look. A purplish, bluish look. And what we're going to do on this is we're going to spray so we have a little bit of a change in color. So let's see how this affects our animation. Let's go back to scene. Let's go back to Control, Rewind, Control, and let's go ahead and test movie in the browser. And as you can see, the first example was kind of a strobing effect because we had a different location on 1 and then on 5. But now we actually animated the color. So on 1, we have a bluish gradient, and on 5, we have a purplish gradient. And this is the effect we have. Okay. What's really fun about this is now we can have a little bit of fun and create some in-between keyframes. So from 1 to 60, we only have one in-between keyframe. And now we can actually select each individual one and start animating it. So on 5, we could press F6 and go into the symbol level. And what we can do is animate some of the individual bubbles. Okay, so we can do that. We could also animate everything as a group. So that's what we can do on F6. We can just press F6. And here what we can do is we can move all of our ever so slightly to the right, ever so slightly to the right. Make sure that you are on the correct level so that when you're on 5, you're moving this over. On 5, you're moving this over. On 5, you're moving this over. This one over here, I'm going to move over. And so we're creating this fun little effect. On 5, we're going to move this over. And what do we have so far? Let's go back to the scene level. Control, rewind, control. Let's go ahead and test movie and flash. And this is what we have. It gives it a little bit of a jitter. And to create a fun little effect, if you go back into this animation from here to here, you could also create a classic tween. So this is what we have. If we go back to the scene, control, let's go ahead and rewind, control, let's go ahead and test the movie. Let's do it in the browser. This is what we have. A much smoother animation. Okay. Now it's time for the next part. So let's go ahead and create another layer. This layer should be in the scene level. Let's go ahead and click. And this layer is going to be called text. And on this text level, what we're going to do is we're going to write anything. For example, this will be a banner for Happy New Year's. So let's go ahead on the first frame, use the text tool, and write Happy New Year. Okay, so this is our advertising ad. Now you'll notice that when you click on the text tool, you have several options to the right in the properties menu. Make sure your Windows and your properties menu is open. If it's not, go to Windows Properties. And in this menu, you can change the color. You could also change the size of your text and the font family. Okay. So once again, and you could also change the position here. So let's go ahead and choose, we're going to choose Impact and press return. And these will be nice bold letters. We are also going to make them much bigger. We're going to fill the entire screen. And in addition to this, we are going to make them white. Okay, so I changed the color to white. I'm going to change the size to 100. Hopefully that fits. And I changed the font family to Impact. And I'm going to go ahead and move over this text to the center. Okay. Once I'm finished moving it to the center, I'm going to simply right-click on the text layer that states Happy New Year, and I'm going to click on Mask. As soon as I do this, you'll notice that now we've created this wonderful masking effect. But you have to be mindful of the fact that as soon as you create the masking effect, that it locks both of these layers. So if you want to make any changes, you have to unlock them. But in order to see the mask, you have to always make sure you lock them back up. Now we can do some other things. We can go back to the stage, which is under properties, and we can change the color of our stage. Just like this. Just like this. Just like that. And you'll notice a difference here. There's one more thing that you can do. That is to differentiate the stage color from the front color. We can add one more layer. Let's go ahead and unlock this. And this layer will be the background layer. For the background layer, we can go ahead and draw using the rectangular tool. We can go ahead and create a nice, I guess, red color. Just like this. And with the background layer, we can put it right behind this. So let's see now what happens if we lock it back up. As you can see, once you put the background layer behind the bubbles, you've created this really wonderful effect with the bubbles. Happy New Year. Now at this point, you'll notice that some of the bubbles are not really hitting this part here. And you might want to have the Happy New Year stand out more. If you want to change and edit the background layer, you can simply unlock it, go back to the background layer, go back to it, and change it by spraying it a different color. Maybe you want a flat color. So maybe you just want a burgundy or a maroon color or a red color. Let's go ahead and try a nice flat red color. All you have to do is switch the color right here next to the fill paint bucket. And let's go ahead and lock the layers again. And now you can see that it's much more clearer. So it really depends, and you can experiment with the background color. But always remember to lock it back up even after you add the background layer. Now you'll also notice that maybe you want some of the bubbles to hit the New Year part. In order to go back to the bubbles and tweak it a bit, just unlock the layer. And right about here, you can choose to click on that frame and push it back. And in addition to that, what you can choose to do is, since it's going from here to the left, you can choose to make it bigger and expand as it's going up, as if it's coming closer. So you can choose to push it this way as well. So the effect will be a little bit different. Instead of going to the left, it's going to go slightly to the right and then to the left. You can push it a little bit more to the right. So here at frame 35, it's going to go a little bit to the right. The bubbles will go to the right, and then they're going to head to the left. Okay. You can also choose to change some of the directions of these bubbles as well. So that it's more spread out. And let's go back to the scene level. Let's go ahead and lock everything back down and make sure we save our scene. Go to File, Save As, and we will call it New Year's Banner. Press Save. And let's go ahead and rewind and test our movie in Flash Professional. And this is what we have. And as you can see, some of the bubbles are moving and strobing, and this can create a nice effect. It depends on what you want to do with this banner. You can also choose not to have the color strobe, and that has to do with the gradient that you choose to fill. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I look forward to seeing some of your banner creations. Take care and stay tuned for the next lesson.